I think we're live. Well, good evening, everybody, and I appreciate everybody joining us for this little workshop. I've sent out quite a few things today. I sent out a little agenda or just some ideas of stuff we can discuss for our needs, whether they're short-term or long-term. And then some topics, once we have our city and county joint meeting, that we can bring up and discuss. And if there's more anybody would like to add, we'll add them to the list. I've had Brad give us a local option sales tax update, where we're at currently, which is the black numbers for 2021 and his budgeted numbers for the rest of the year. And hopefully we still have the same return that we've been having. I've also had Brad run us some papers today that shows every fund, what's available in it. And he's given us each an explanation of what we can use for that fund. So if anybody has any questions as we go through this. But with that being said, we're doing this meeting electronically because of the COVID-19 pandemic to protect the health and safety of the public and ourselves. So with that being said, I've never done anything quite like this. So if anybody's got any experience and wants to speak up, feel free to interrupt me and share your ideas. But I guess we'll start with stuff for us for the short term and long term. And I guess we can start with, I think the sheriff's here, so I don't know if he's gonna stay for the whole thing, but we can start talking with the sheriff about some of the ideas that have been thrown out that I've heard through other committees. And
Where do you want me to sit?
you can sit right here or wherever. I can scoot down a little bit.
No, you don't have to scoot down for me.
And, I've heard some people talk about completing the third floor of the jail. I know we've talked about several times about the radio towers and then sheriff's department pay. I know their officers are very much underpaid compared to our neighbors to the west of us here. So with that being said, Sheriff, do you want to talk about pay or the radio towers or whichever?
Start, they asked me to come over here and give us a 5-year on things that we want to try to accomplish. The radios, and that's a countywide system, as everybody's aware. It's not just for the sheriff's office. That would be one of the things that we just about completed the RFP on it. So we'll be having some figures for you here shortly. Don't know what the cost is going to be, and I don't want to make a guess and then be wrong, but it may not be as expensive as we thought. But anyway, that's one. The other is the upstairs of the old jail. We started this a couple of times, and the coronavirus got in the way this time with the stadium labor force. But, if we're going to start it, I think we have to be prepared to do it. We don't want to start and get halfway through, and then so it's going to take a commitment.
Can we do it in sections and phases?
Well, you can, but the talk initially with everyone was, and originally maybe some courtrooms upstairs, but the judges and Johnny, and I understand why. I think they're happy where they're at. So I have said I'll move upstairs. But it would take obviously a remodeling job to do that. But we don't need to make a mountain out of a molehill. I'll give you an example. I don't know if you all remember 6 years ago, when they had the parking lot over there, the bid price on that little parking lot was $189,000. Well, I got it done for about $50,000 because we didn't do it through the regular channels of government, which sometimes bogs us down. We didn't violate any laws, regulations, or nothing. But there's ways of saving money and doing things like that. But that's two of them, and then employees. And I always, as y'all know, I always speak up for the employees. It's my job to advocate for the sheriff's office.
Right.
And that's what I try to do. But to give an example, I called around and I compared. Right now I'm 14 jailers short. Mm-hmm. Now, see if I can explain briefly what the problem is with this. See, I don't hire SROs, and I don't hire patrol officers. We don't have the luxury of doing that because you've already got to be certified, experienced. We don't have that luxury. Occasionally we'll get one, but it's very seldom. We hire jailers. $24,000 a year, $24,049. Then we put those jailers through training in the jail. And as openings occur and they wish to move, they can apply. We have a system that we go through, so it's not political. I don't just hand out things. There's an assessment done by the supervisors over there, not me. And then we allow the employees to move into the positions that they want based upon the needs of the department. Well, see, I'm 4 SROs short. I'm at a critical level in the jail, 14 down. I can't move anybody out of jail. I'm statutorily obligated to run that jail for the safety and well-being of the citizens of this county and employees and the inmates. 14 down. That's when you get below 85% of anything, you're getting at critical levels. So we can't move people until we hire some jailers. We just redid the test because we were shooting ourselves in the foot. Now, Civil Service Board does the test and approves it, not us. And it took a little while to get that done. We got it approved. We only had 5 people show up to take the test. It's been a very hard test in the past. We had like a 70% failure rate. Not because people weren't smart taking it. They were asking questions that they shouldn't be asking. This test was 25 years old. So hopefully that'll give us some more availability on the recruit side. But out of those 5 last Tuesday, I wound up hiring 1. 2 called in that were going to take the job and said they took a higher paying job. And 1 I just didn't think was, they just didn't meet the qualifications. I just didn't hire him. So, and one of them that took it was part-time already. Okay. So if we can get that back up and start getting that to where we had 15, 20 people taking the test, but I can't control that. COVID, what's going on in the country today, and the pay, all of those things in combination, it makes it difficult to get people to come and take the test. And then by the time you get through the whole process of background, psychologicals, physicals, out of 15 people, you're lucky to get 3. Okay. And we're 14 down. So anyway, I called around. The average pay for a corrections officer from Hawkins County this way, starting pay is $27,778. Our starting pay is $24,049. And I know you all have a difficult job. I do understand. We're limited on where we've only got one source of income for the county, but it's causing problems. And again, we're at a critical level. And I know it's not just the sheriff's office, but again, I'm here to advocate for the sheriff's office. It shouldn't be speaking on other departments. I shouldn't be doing that. The only people that plays Unicoi County is about $100 less a year than we are. And that's just, it's getting where it's causing problems. Okay. And here's what I do, so you all understand. In the past, sheriffs were reluctant to train people at a higher level. Mm-hmm. Because if you train them at a higher level, they become an asset for anybody that hires them. So it's hard to keep them. But it's a catch-22 situation. If you don't train them, you don't have good officers. And, this last homicide case, we had 3 people in custody in 48 hours. That don't just happen. Right. We have a lot of good people there that are committed to this county department. I train them. We're getting ready to send one to a 3-month school. It's a federal. It's a high dollar, which is not costing us, but it's a big deal. Mm-hmm. And what I try to do is then I try to balance that and try my best to keep them here after I get that training. Some we still lose some, and that's going to happen. But we are training them with the hopes that they stay. But we can't keep doing that forever. Crime's down. It's 35% total, 70% on burglaries. That don't just happen by accident. Again, I'm a small cog in the big wheel, but we have a lot of good people that work for us over there that are dedicated, that are very well trained, equipped now. And I appreciate you all, this working relationship we have and with the federal inmates, that's what that money is used for, that equipment and those trainings. And so we don't have to go back to the public and the taxpayer for those things. We just replaced the records management system, $340,000. That wasn't done with taxpayer money. But it's a challenge. And again, I honestly understand, I do. And I don't know, I'm glad I'm not sitting in your all shoes.
What do you think it would take to make Carter County competitive?
If I had a 10% pay raise, 10% would still get us, it'd still be about $1,300 less than the average starting pay. But from talking with everybody, 10% would, can I sit here and promise you that nobody will leave? Of course
Right.
not.
No, everybody's looking to make more money no matter where.
Yes, because they have families, but $24,000 a year.
Can we do it through a bonus pay program for
No,
training or anything?
No, I have to train them. See, there was some talk about having the ones that go to the academy sign a contract. Well, the people that are leaving are not the ones that would apply to. I've only had one leave that would apply to. He went to work for FedEx. And he had been here longer than 3 years.
Right. So it wouldn't cost him anything.
So the problem is not patrol officers leaving. Occasionally that happens, yes. But 14 corrections officers, I'm actually 20 short because we have 6 that are under military orders right now. They're serving in the Guard and Reserves, and we're very supportive of that. That happens when you hire military people. But the plus side of that is when we hire military people, we don't have to pay insurance for them. So it's a, balancing act there, but it's difficult. And a lot of people, I understand, when they want an officer, they want this and for that. Well, we don't have officers for this and for that. When you're that short, it's a challenge.
Do you happen to have like a total number of a 10% raise, what it would cost to implement something like
I can give you an approximate.
Okay, what?
350. My payroll was about $3.5 million.
Okay.
Up or down. I don't know if Brad's on or not.
I don't think he's on there.
No, I don't think so.
Now, that's an approximate.
Right.
And look, you all have helped. You have the insurance thing. When I came here, the employees had not had a sheriff's office and not had a pay raise in 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Not only had they not had one, in 2010, they took 5% away to pay retirement. So they actually lost money during that period. And when you go through, if you go to work at Walmart, you'll not work at Walmart 10 years without a pay raise.
No.
You'll get a pay raise every year.
Daniel.
You do. And our employees are our best asset, the biggest asset we have in this county. And we need to do what we can, for all of them. And again, I appreciate it. Everybody appreciates the Christmas bonus. They appreciate those things.
What can we focus? Could we focus the raise? Who are you actually losing? Are you losing sergeants and lieutenants and having to refill those positions?
Basically, jailers. But here's the problem with what only rewarding as percentage. You can't. I have a pay scale. I can't, I was talking to one of the commissioners here recently, and that was suggested, but we can't give the low jailers a 10% pay raise, because when I do that, they're making more than the patrol officers started. So you can't, you can't do that.
Gotcha.
And you want to reward the people that stay here long. We top out 10 steps in 12 years. They didn't have that when I got here. It'd been taken away and the pay was all over the place. I don't know what it was based on, but you can't do that. Right now, when you're hired as sheriff's office or you're promoted, number of years you've been there, the spots you're in, and that's what you make. There's no guesswork about it. But those are my 3 things that the next, bit that we've got to work on, and I appreciate some of your commitment to this radio system. It's
yes, sir. We know it's important to our first responders.
It absolutely is. It's getting worse and worse. It's
do you have any input on the 3rd floor of the jail construction?
No, because we've never gotten beyond the rip out phase of the. It depends on what we want to do. Again, I'm no engineer. I'm a draftsman. I build all my life. That's how it supplemented my income my whole career. But it seems to me that if we could use inmate labor to deconstruct, then to do the framing of whatever we put back. And framing is framing. It's anybody that's done any construction work knows it doesn't matter what's been done there. It's not going to be blocks. It's either going to be metal or wood framing with drywall.
They talk about the 2nd floor, though.
2nd floor, yes. And then we could hire maybe a plumbing contractor, an HVAC contractor, an electrical contractor to do those phases, because you don't want inmates fooling with those things for obvious reasons. But there seems to me like if we could get some people to sit down, if there's ways that we could do this at a cost savings, instead of just going to engineers and architects and saying, here, what's it going to cost to do this?
Right.
Because it's going to be a whole lot higher.
I think that's what, the point of this is we want to have I'm looking at 5 years or less right now. Just to start focusing for budget wise, stuff that we can work on in the short terms, goals that we can meet. And I know that according here, there's about 32,000 left for old jail deconstruction, so we've got a little bit of money and
using it because again, I didn't want to get started on something without a commitment of everybody to that we've got to, if we start it, we've got to complete it.
Right.
It's going to affect downstairs.
What's your plans? For that second floor, what would you like to use that for?
I think we could, if the judges and the clerk wants to stay downstairs, let them have the whole first floor,
Okay.
move us upstairs.
Okay.
And, we go up there, we have to build a couple of bathrooms, and then break it down into the various offices. We'd have to have an armory. We'd have to have a evidence room, which we just did, but we could use the existing elevator if you put some walls in downstairs to guide the public access where it's at on the sheriff's office side now, to keep them out of the court side, put some block walls up.
Okay. Did you want to use the third floor of the jail for?
You're talking about the second floor.
Or the top floor of the big jail?
Oh, the big jail.
Yeah, I think that was what people were talking about.
Okay, I'm sorry, I
Third
misunderstood you. Okay. You're talking about the third floor of the new
It's
jail.
unfinished, yes.
And this COVID has caused a lot of problems, as everyone knows, and everything. We were under negotiations with the feds. And again, I don't want to get into too much in a public forum and
Right.
misunderstand.
Right, I understand.
I hope you understand.
Yes, sir.
It can put kinks in things, but we were trying to get, we have 3 sections in that jail. And I'll always do this. I invite any of the commissioners that want to come, please come over. I know some of you have been. Let me show you what we're talking about here. And so we've got 3 areas, about probably 7,500 square feet total. That's just sitting there. It's,
I remember when I worked at the fire department, we come and visited before.
yeah, and
They
the
opened it up.
plan initially was to do this, to enter into an agreement and try to get, renegotiate our contract with the feds and use that money.
Yeah.
To remodel or to take one section now, not all 3,
Yeah.
just one of those areas. And it would hold approximately 80 inmates, I think is what we figured, it seems like.
Okay, yeah, that was what I meant. Is it possible to do those things in phases for that part?
Yeah, that part, no, you'll have to do, well, by phases, you mean a section?
A section?
Yes.
Okay,
That's what you want to do. And if we just had one section, we would probably be good there. And then we could, and we need to be careful when we start talking about the federal money, because as we know, the election happened and we don't know what's going to happen. It's already, I can tell you this, there's things that are already started with the sheriffs trying to get into the management of the sheriff's office and set policies and procedures for sheriff's offices across the country. And we can't let that happen.
no, sir.
And, they may use the threat of federal money.
Mhm.
But
What would your financial impact be if that happened and we could finish 7,500 square feet with 80 inmates? What kind of workforce would you need?
Or I'd have to hire probably 8 more jailers.
8 more jailers.
Do you generally run on a 1-to-10 ratio?
Yeah. Well, you'd have to have, it's not the ratio of inmates to jailers. It's shifts. You have to have a certain amount of, even if you just had 10 inmates over there, with that building, you couldn't lay off all the jailers because they still have to maintain that building and everything. If you've got 1 inmate, everything that takes place with that 1 inmate, it takes place for 100.
Right.
So it's not a ratio that you would think works out that way. But if you have a new pod or a new block, you'd have to have 2 jailers for that block for each of the 4 shifts at minimum.
Now, I have a question. I know times are tough out of COVID, and I know in the past the city used inmates at the golf course, and then they went under a private company to run it,
Correct.
which is owned by the city. Which
And
is
I cannot give them.
you cannot do anything for
I
them.
cannot give them inmates.
Okay.
No, sir. I've had a talk with Louis when he was there. It is a felony, and we.
Because it's a private company?
It's a private company.
Okay.
It still may be city property, but it's a private company, and that company is making money arranging that. And what I would be doing, I would be providing inmate labor to a private company that's getting paid for that labor.
Yeah, slave labor, basically, that's what it becomes down.
And that's why those things.
But if it ever went out of that management's hands, it went back.
Absolutely, goes back to city management, absolutely, I will get an inmate, as long as we've got inmates.
Right.
Remember this, I don't know if everybody's aware, during the COVID, we had 145 inmates let out of jail.
Yes.
Not temporarily, but let out. So if my inmates are cut by 50%, that means my workforce is cut by 50%. And you combine that with being 14 short. See, I can't send out inmates without jailers.
Right.
Well, I have no jailers to send out. I don't. So if you've not been to the school and you've not been certified to have the inmate labor, and we're at a critical point where I can't. I don't have guards. That's why we had to drop the animal control.
Gotcha.
It should have been down there to start with, but I was trying to help. But they volunteered to use their week off for overtime. That was what was going on. The jailers did. Well, we had 5 when we started. We got down to 2 because I couldn't get people to volunteer for it. And I'm not going to. It's not something that you can force your employees to work an extra week a month. You can't do that.
Yeah.
So we got to where we only had 2. And it wasn't working out either. But yes, to answer your question, in the event that the city takes over, and that's their business, not mine, the management of that golf course, and there's no private vendor making any money off the management of that course, I will be more than happy to supply them with inmate labor.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions or want to talk about anything, issues with the sheriff's department? I think we've got some pretty good ideas of stuff, I think we could possibly work on in the coming budget.
And please, let's come over and have a conversation. Let me show you what's going on over there, 2 or 3 at a time, whatever. And it may answer any questions that you've got, because again, I can't do those things in a forum like this. We have things over there that we don't want. If the public finds out, then the drug dealers find out and the criminals find out. So I can't address them in a public forum, but please come over and see me and anytime you want, and we'll take you on a tour. We'll let you see what we're doing. You'll have some understanding of the sheriff's office that you've got over there, the dedicated employees that you have.
Chairman Hill, ACUF First District.
Yes, sir.
I'm not going to speak for everybody on building and grounds. I see Commissioner Grindstaff, Holdren, McInturf, Johnson, all, so you all can chime in on this. As you know, at one of our meetings, we made the recommendation and passed through, and now it's passed through the full commission, that the probation office will no longer be leasing space from us. One of the discussion items surrounding the decision to do that is to go back to the state of Tennessee and ask them, would they consider renovating part of the space in the old jail for some opportunity to use that space at a lower cost or whatever. I think that needs to be pursued. We know that is a program that the Tennessee Board of Regents uses in our discussions with Northeast State, with the president there. And so I think we need to really explore that idea and take the initiative in reaching out to the state to see if that's a space that they would renovate for us for their use, and it would revert back to the county at future dates.
Be careful.
Anyone else?
Chairman Hill,
Yes, Ms. Holden.
it's going to come to the floor next week for the full commission to vote on PTO for health checkups for our employees. I reached out to the sheriff yesterday to ask if that was doable in his department. It's going to be difficult for him. So I'd like for him to address that topic so that we will know how to vote on the floor next week.
Yes,
It will
ma'am.
help us in our decision.
Okay, as I told you, Ms. Holder, I'm supportive of it, but you've got to realize there's a cost involved. And we'll say this, it doesn't mean it's not a negative. If you have 3 employees in your department or 4, this is an easy thing to do. I've got 120 when I'm, 110 to 130, it depends on what. day it is.
120 days a year that you're losing.
Yeah. So if we do this, whatever we compensate, you're talking about 1,000 hours. It's just like election day or any holiday. It costs me 1,000 hours.
What's your shifts typically run? 12 hours?
12 hours.
12-hour shifts.
Yeah. There's only the CID, bailiffs, court process, and administrative staff works 8. Everybody else works 12.
Gotcha.
You can't, I can't give them the day that they go get their physical, because then somebody's going to start scheduling it. Because again, you're talking about 120 people.
Yes.
And I don't want to get into scheduling people's doctor's appointments. So if you're going to give them a day off, then what would have to happen, we would have to put it on their books as comp time when they brought, and there would be no other way of doing it. Then sometime during the, 90 days or 6 months or whatever, again, you have to spread it out, because we can't close, and I can't let, people off because you just can't. We try not to get no more than 1 off per shift, because when you do, we've got 4 officers on a shift, you've got the power shift, which has about 8. But so it has to be scheduled over time.
Gotcha.
And I would be more than happy to do it for anything that will help the employees and help us get a healthier employee group. But just be aware of that.
So you're saying your department would be better to go get their checkup, and we offer them, once they turn their paper in, then we give them
whatever, right?
how many hours in comp time.
Right. That's up to you all. But right. That's the way that I would have to do it by my policy.
Right.
I've adopted our own personnel policies and guidelines, but because again, I can't, you bring it to me today and I can't let you take off tomorrow, because what if 10 show up today?
Right.
Yeah.
Or 3 or 2 on the same shift. So then you'd have to get into the scheduling of people's doctor's appointments.
Right.
That's not our job.
No. Okay. So it would have to go back out as comp time. Is that your recommendation for it?
That would be, if you're going to be giving them time, that would be the recommendation. And because I think you all have looked at giving them cards, money. If you give them money, the government takes it.
Yeah.
Federal government. But I don't know. I don't. Are y'all in a good mood?
I'm always in a good mood.
How about this? How about if we get to a 90% rate of those compliant, you give them 10% pay raise?
Well, here, Chairman Hill, Brad Johnson.
Yes, sir, Mr. Johnson.
I'm going to address the sheriff direct.
Yes, sir.
You have to understand that if we don't get them under the wellness exam, and I think the time frame was up around about June,
Yes.
then your insurance is going up, and your insurance increase is going to be greater than any comp time you pay. So which one do you want to give up?
Right. No, I'll be more than happy to give the comp time. I'm not saying I
No,
wouldn't.
I understand that, but I'm saying the need for it because
Absolutely.
of the pandemic and the insurance, where our brokers are doing everything they can to negotiate
Right.
another, and I hope it's a no increase health, because it's come a long way, and you were an instrument of doing that to start with.
Yes, sir.
But if we don't accomplish that, that's a big spoke in the wheel, which may cause Blue Cross Blue Shield or Aetna or any of the rest of them to want to increase on us, and we're trying to beat those percentages.
I'll be more than happy to do it. I don't want you to think I'm saying I'm not. I'm more than happy to do it. I just want you to know that when those hours start showing up, because the auditors, as you know, when they start with a comp time, we're keeping it paid down right now at manageable rates, which wasn't done before. I can't remember it was unreal, the amount of comp times on the books 5 years ago. But it'll go on and we'll manage it and we'll give them time off as we can schedule it. But that's the only way I know of doing it.
So that's probably a good thing, but knowing that now understanding it and not hearing it before, and our chairwoman Holdren, I'm sure that in the financial management and the health and welfare committees, we'll be able to come up with some way of the reimbursable to eliminate the comp time going on your books
Right.
for our wellness.
Well, I think we can get accomplished where I think we can control it. I don't think it's gonna be that big of an issue. I just want you to know
Yeah, no,
that's what I've got to do. So,
Yeah.
but it,
it's understandable, right? It's not to me, it has more or less, I'm gonna say, raised its ugly head in the past 2 months and hadn't been spoken of so much, and we got I'm gonna say limited, but we got from now to mid next year to come into alignment. Will we get 100%? No, there's no way that
no,
we
you'll
can
never
make
get
that happen.
100%.
But we're now at, I think the last count we had with our brokers, we were sitting, it's either at 42 or 47%
No, that's not good.
of our, well, I know, but and I hate to use the word worst, but the lowest, the department with the lowest number happened to be the sheriff's department. Of course,
Right.
it's the biggest employer of our insurance group.
Right.
And we were
A lot
trying
of that
to
has to
come
do with, right, they're young, we've got a lot of young people.
Yeah.
And they have a tendency when you're younger not to be worried about your health. And I think a lot of them, honestly, they just don't think about it. They don't. I just don't think they think about scheduling a physical. As we get older, I get one every year. And that's, maybe with whatever y'all decide to do, maybe we do some kind of a campaign that makes I don't know how we do it, but I think really, me and the chief has talked about this. A lot of them, I don't think, it's not that they're not aware, they just forget. They don't think to schedule a physical.
Do they have an annual physical scheduled? Do they have to keep up an annual physical for?
No.
But the majority of our officers all are married and family men.
Yep.
And there's 2 ways that I can see that the one's work is once employed, and it doesn't help the ones that's already there, more or less grandfathered. But once employed, they gotta understand the first thing you're gonna do is have a wellness exam to get you insurance.
If we can make it mandatory, I even thought about this. I thought about what if, and Josh would have to ask him, what if we paid them for their time to take the physical? That was a thought in my head, because if I pay them for their time, I can require them to do it.
Just basically sit them in the middle of the day?
No, they would schedule when they want to go. And if it takes 2 hours, I pay them 2 hours of time. And then they're on your time. And you could require them to go. And that may be a possibility, because I want them to get their physicals too.
Okay. Well, the other thing, one of the other options they mentioned, and I might have been the originator of it, I don't know, I can't remember, but is the fact is here, employee, is your insurance cost. Now, we have cut the family insurance down quite a bit as far as their premium or out of their check pay. But you get your wellness, your 4-hour, go to your 4-hour wellness exam, this is your premium for your family. You fail and you don't do that, here is what your premium is. And it's going to be a sizable difference between the two. Now, all that comes out of their pocket. Now, which one do you think they'd do?
Right. Well, let me ask you this. Is there any way that we could contract with a doctor?
That was my thought.
To do them for the county? And again, we pay the employee, we do them, I'd be more than happy to open up the medical unit that we have to jail. And we're not talking about it's not something where they undress you and do all that stuff. This is not an invasive physical that you get.
Oh, darn, I was going to try some new tricks over there.
So
Brad was breaking out his rubber gloves already.
So maybe we could do that, and all possible. Look at everything, bring everything on the table, look at all the possibilities. If we could get a doctor contracted to do that, but I don't know how you would. If the insurance would cover, well, if they're covering a physical, I don't think they're restrictive on what doctor you go to, right? So they would pay for it.
Their network.
And if we contracted to do it at one location in a mass group over, say, a month time, it would probably be at a cheaper rate from a medical standpoint than if we were all going to individual doctors for the insurance company.
Well, that's a good idea.
No, I don't know.
And that's one that hadn't been discussed unless I overlooked it, in our financial management or in health and welfare. that we may need to run to our brokers to see. I'm
Right.
sure as far as paying for the medical part of it, it's free to the employee to start with, whether they go to their doctor or whoever. So
So the
instead of
insurance is
sending
paying.
the whole department to one, bring the one over to the department. You know.
Correct. I don't know if that's possible, but it's just an idea.
You never
Chairman
hear the
Hill,
word.
ACA First District, yes, it is possible. It's called direct primary care. And we explored that possibility several years ago. We also talked about that as a function of self-funding ourselves. So we need to return to that topic if you're going to do something like that.
Well, maybe we just look at it on just the physical part initially to start with and see how that works out. But that's just an idea of trying to get everybody on board with getting a physical. And if we do that, and again, I pay them, I can mandate them to do it. But I don't want to be the only one doing this. Now, if we do this, I think we have to do whatever we're willing to do here, whatever I'm willing to do for the whole county. And we're in agreement there, right? This is for all the county employees.
Yes.
Right, okay.
Mhm.
But I will do whatever I have to do or whatever you want me to do to get that accomplished.
When we went into the primary care thought training, Dr. Acuff, please correct me, but you would have thought we was asking them to cut their own throats. They had every reason in the world that they didn't want to do that. Well, that ain't my doctor, or
They
I
like
don't like
change.
them, or I have to drive all the way over here. It was every excuse I've ever heard in the world to lower their insurance costs when they are sitting there losing money to raise their family with.
If you're doing just the physical, then it separates their everyday care.
Yeah.
And then you contract with one physician to come in. Again, I don't know how long it would take. What we're talking about, 240 employees roughly?
Yeah.
Probably a couple of weeks or a month.
I think the physicals at my doctor's office get blocked off in 1 hour increments.
Right.
So
If we can find a doctor willing to do that. And again, we're not talking about their care, just the physical. The scheduled physical, and then once it becomes practice and mandatory and everybody realizes that you've got to go do it, I'd say we jump to a high percentage rather quickly. But if we can do it, I don't know if we can do it.
What do you think, Doc Acuff?
Well, I think that would certainly be a start. It does take about 700 patients, as the sheriff was talking about, in terms of reimbursing a physician in a direct primary care setting. It would take about 700 individuals to pay for the salary. I would imagine that there would be folks, I can even not volunteering anybody at the College of Medicine at ETSU, but I have talked with the dean a lot about expanding family medicine presence in Carter County. That might be of interest to them, particularly for some of their residents. So it would be an avenue for us to pursue, but it is a thought.
Can a DO do that, Dr. Acuff, the physical?
Yes, sure. We have.
Well, I've got one in mind that's very, very, very pro law enforcement. But again, we're talking about just the physical. I'm not talking about providing no health care. Just
Understand that.
But anyway, that's your all's call. But I will do whatever I can do to help you. And I'll start having conversations with my employees and with the supervisors and see if we can't get it up a little bit. That might help. We can get the percentage raised if we start putting a little pressure on them as an employer. I'll see.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody have any more discussion for the sheriff?
Thank you all. Appreciate you very much. And like I said, come and see me.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Chairman Hill.
Yes, sir, Mr. Smith.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to jump in here on the radio thing that the sheriff has been proposing and working on.
Yes.
I think that is one of the most important proposals for the county over the next few years. And also, some of you probably aren't aware, but I volunteered with the Sheriff's Department for about 3 years. And so I got to be out there and see firsthand what those men and women face every day. And I can tell you that it's a tough job and they are certainly underpaid. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Sheriff.
you.
Hey, Dexter, good to see you, man.
Supporting your interest. Thank you.
Mayor, I think you had somebody who's going to speak on grants. So we're
Yes,
going to maybe we'll keep him on all night.
yeah, I was gonna, I've got Nathan Woods on with us. He's with the Tennessee Department of Economic Development. He's gonna come on and kind of speak to us a little bit about the role that they play. And I'm not sure many commissioners are aware that they're really wanting to jump in and help us with our industry and small businesses. And so they've got quite a bit to offer. And I'll turn it over to him and let him introduce himself. And he grew up in Carter County, so that's another positive. He's from Elizabethton. So Nathan, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so I grew up in Elizabethton and left for about 15 years, and I'm in Kingsport now. So I'm a business development consultant with the Tennessee Department of Economic Development. And really what we do, some of you I recognize here I've worked with in the past, but what we really do is try to help medium to large size businesses and manufacturers hire employees. And the way that the state helps that occur is by incentivizing through job training grants. And we do some infrastructure grants, like if you had a location that didn't have power or water, we would help with that. We have a grant for that. And then we also just have an economic development grant that would help someone do like a building expansion, like an add-on or something of that nature. So we basically have those three grants that I kind of call the front end. And then on the back end, we can also help with tax incentives for job creation as well. So everything we do is based on the number of hires a company would want to do. So we incentivize by that. That's one metric. Our next metric is how close a business gets to the average county wage when they're going to hire. So essentially, we only incentivize good paying jobs that also provide insurance and benefits. And then so I work for an 8-county region. I work from Greene County all the way to Johnson County. I live in Kingsport, but I travel that area all the time. And I function essentially just through word of mouth, contacting or reaching out to businesses on our own. I have a counterpart that I work with as well. So I've actually been in Carter County a lot, but Mayor Whitby and I had a conversation this morning, and just, there's a lot of industry in Carter County that we'd like to help. We've worked with Logan and Elizabeth and counterparts like that all across our region. And so we want to help Carter County any way that we can. And that's kind of my spiel. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have for me.
Something that we discussed this morning is Nathan said that, and where we've been talking about the economic development position, is Carter County doesn't have that go-to person that they look to in each county to kind of show them the businesses, the places that are looking for. And they said, and I'll let Nathan maybe chime back in on that, how helpful that is when they go to other counties and what their other counties look like when they try to go into those counties.
Correct. In Elizabeth and Logan, and then in other locations we have, sometimes I'm working directly with the mayor, sometimes I'm working with a chamber president or an economic development, director of that county or city. And so a lot of times, I made the joke this morning that when I send an email or a phone call and say I'm from the state, that goes one of two ways. Either they really want to talk to me or they don't want to talk to me at all. And a lot of times having that local contact to just kind of open the door. In Sullivan County, we have like Networks, their group, and then we have the Net Rep that we work with in Washington County and some of the others as well. So, but yeah, anytime that I can partner with a local person, contact, even, physician or commission member, whatever, to get in the door to just explain what we do is always helpful. Because I said this morning as well, I feel like 90% of my job is just exactly what I'm doing tonight, just telling people that we're around and that we actually have grants that are pretty easy to qualify for if you hit the metrics. And so we're here to help. I just want to remind people that we're here.
Nathan, it's Travis Hill. You don't have any broadband grants right now, do you?
That is my department. We just did we just did a announcement last Thursday with Bright Ridge. They qualified for one. I think it might have been in 19 grant that we were announcing. I'm not sure if it was 2020 grant, but yeah, those are available. I can get you some information on that.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Woods?
I do, but I'm choked.
Hold on a second. Aaron's got a question. Give me just a second.
You're good.
And another thing that Nathan had told me today is if they see an industry that's got, we're hiring sign out in front of that, they do try to get in contact with that industry to even offer on-the-job training to help that industry get employees inside that industry. You know, they're definitely a tool for us, for Carter County, I believe, to use to not just get new businesses in, but also retain the ones that we have to get them more employees inside their industry.
Yeah, for sure. We, when I see that, like if I see a big sign that says, you know, hiring now, I you know, that happens occasionally. Especially if it's a manufacturer, I think where we can step in is just, if they're going to hire anyway, we can be icing on the cake to help them with the job training. The job training grant that we offer is actually I would think I would be correct in saying that's probably the easiest to get. And we've helped, I mean, countless manufacturers across our region really, you know, be able to hire that person, train them with one of our grants on the front end, and then there's actually a job tax grant on the back end too. So you can combine a couple of things we have to offer and actually put together a pretty good package.
Ready, Aaron?
Yeah, I'm not choked anymore. Sorry about that. I got choked on my own spit. Nathan, I've been the one that's been kind of beating the drum about this. A lot of people when we first came onto this commission, a lot of people said we need economic development in the county, and I've been beating the drum on this. I went to the basic economic development course back in August, and I just finished up the workforce development course back in November, and I'm looking to hit more of them as we go through. How many of the counties that you serve and the cities, how many of those have some sort of economic development or economic developer or go-to person?
So my smaller counties probably don't.
I know there's Jeff Taylor in Greene County, and then I can't think of her name that just started over in Bristol, and I know Sullivan County's got one as well. Plus they've got the Spark and all the other stuff over there as well. But
right. In probably my two smallest counties, which are Hancock and Johnson, I'm typically working directly with the mayor there and some of the commissioners. But then Greene County, like you said, has one, and I would say probably the rest of them actually have a go-to person. Now, Sullivan County, that's different because they have the networks, the overarching that goes for strictly focuses on manufacturing and industry. But then both Kingsport and Bristol have both Kingsport and Bristol both have their own economic developer that focuses more on tourism and retail recruitment and things like that.
And so if a county actually has a department like that, does it increase their opportunity or that person or people, how much does that increase their ability to draw in businesses, both of industrial businesses and micro industry and micro enterprise, as well as other things?
So prior to working with the state, I did planning economic development in Kingsport. So, I mean, I definitely think there's a benefit for it. I don't want to go out on a limb and say you absolutely have to have it, because I think there's other ways to you can conquer it. But I mean, we always are looking for a contact person. So, I mean, I think you're right in that sense.
And I'll ask the question again. Do you think that we need some sort of full-blown development department, or do we just need a go-to person and perhaps a grant writer? Or what would be your recommendation for the county?
Well, I mean, I think, no, you're good. I mean, and I'm going to give you a real government answer here. I feel like part of our role is just we're going to work with whoever you got. So I really feel like that's for y'all to determine. However, I mean, like I said, a lot of time, so I cover 8 counties, and there's a lot, like you mentioned already, obviously there's always going to be activity through in Sullivan and Washington because they're the most populated counties that we have. And they with NetRep and Washington County and some of the surrounding counties, they've got momentum, just like Sullivan County has momentum with networks. But you've already mentioned it, so I've seen a lot of momentum in Greene County. So I would say a place where it helps is we're covering 8 counties, and you all I don't live there, so someone there is always going to know what's going on a little bit better than I am. Now, obviously, I'm doing my best, but there's a lot of industry. We're a very historically manufacturing heavy region in Northeast Tennessee. So anytime that we can get a foot in the door or whatever will help. And the other place I think, and we talked a little bit about this, Mayor Woodby, this morning, where it can help to have someone is that when we come with a grant, one of the things I basically take an application to the state and show them all the merits that I see to incentivize this company that wants to expand or hire. And one of the questions that always comes up is the local community contributing to the business as well? Because we want to see that the local community has some skin in the game too, that they think it's a worthwhile project, so that the state does the same thing. So I think that can help, when we work with someone on a local stage as well.
And I know one of the things you'd mentioned earlier was incentivization for the businesses. I know that we're a Tier 4 county. Can you explain to everybody else what that means specifically?
I think you're Tier 3 now, but yeah.
Oh, so, wow, we fell.
No, that's good. You're Tier 4 is the worst, or not the worst, the most distressed, I guess is the way to say it. So the state ranks counties on a tier system, so 1 through 4. 4 is distressed. I believe, I don't remember what 3 is actually called off the top of my head, but obviously if you just think through, at risk. So that's right. So obviously if you just think through it, like your Nashvilles and your Knoxvilles and Memphis are going to be a 1, and then you're going to have some 2s like Sullivan County, and then y'all are a 3. And so it just means it's just a ranking system. But one way it actually helps is that if you were a 4 or a 3, the job tax credit on the back end is actually larger for at-risk counties. So I don't want to say it's good to be a Tier 3, but there's some ways that it can help you when we're working with an organization to try to incentivize them for job creation.
Nathan, this is Bob Acuff, 1st District. One of the things that we think is low-hanging fruit in this county is tourism. You indicated that most of the Northeast are heavily manufacturer, et cetera. And I assume that Tennessee ECD does provide grants in that area. What do y'all have to offer in the area of tourism? We have a resort that's being planned for the Watauga Lake area. Could be 100 people plus employed. But in the past, we've been told that tourism isn't given that much recognition by ECD or any incentives.
Well, so the way that ECD is split into departments, so my focus is all manufacturing, job creation, but there is a portion of our department that focuses on that. I do know that they have grants. I don't know that I can speak intelligently about what they are, how much, but I do know that there are some things like that available, and I can definitely get that to the mayor to send out to you guys.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Woods? Doesn't see anybody. Nathan, I really appreciate you coming on here tonight, and I'm sure the mayor does as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, Yeah, I'll see you guys again soon. I'm gonna hop off, but you seriously, anybody that knows of a company that is, I definitely have a threshold of, it's probably not necessarily worth our time if somebody's only going to hire 5 people. And I've had that conversation with several of you on here, but once we're getting into that 15 to 25, let's definitely call me up and we can definitely figure something out in a way we can help.
Thank you, Nathan, and we'll be in touch.
All right. See you soon.
Thank you. I think the next topic we'll go to is talking about landfill. I know Mr. Von Cannon has talked about closure cost here in the past few weeks. And I know we're looking at either a future expansion or the possibility of a new location. So does anybody want to take the lead on talking about the landfill?
I think Mr. Bailey's on here, Travis.
Yeah, I'm on here.
Gary, what are y'all looking at?
Well, to be honest, I don't know. I've asked Benny for some stuff, but I know it's coming where he says we're eventually going to have to. And I can tell you that basically in our landfill committee, we worked with Mr. Brad Burke, and he said, that basically he's got what our rates are going to have to go up to. Because whether anybody likes it or not, at some point, they're going to have to close the one that's there and maintain it. So we're going to have to set some money aside. And, we keep pumping it in there and pumping it in, but once it closes, it's going to take some to cover it. And basically, we covered that in the landfill committee, that we're going to have to raise our rates. That's just the way it is. We just can't survive the way it's going. So there's some preliminary numbers, and I hope that basically next month we talk about it in our workshop and bring it to the full commission. Travis, I'm just going to be honest with you. We're making some money in the recycling, but in landfill ourselves, it's just draining us dry. I don't know how to put it, and it's nothing that Benny's done. It's just the fact that the equipment's old, the landfill's old, and he's inherited it. But the prior commissioner, and I'm not pointing toward them by no means, but this is years down the road. There was nothing set aside for once you open it to maintain it once you close it. And so I guess that's really all I'm saying that till we bring some more stuff up.
Okay. Are you all going to be looking at, I know there was some property next to it for sale. Are they going to be looking at buying that property, or are they just going to look for a whole new property?
Well, I think Mr. Harden's still trying to look at that, and we're trying to get some prices. I think Benny and then was trying to get with that. So I've not heard anything back. I will check and try to put that on our agenda so we can find out where we stand on that.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions on the landfill?
The front part of the property is already sold. He's looking at a different piece now.
Okay, thank you. I can't tell if Mr. Von Cannon is wanting to say something or if he's just reading something.
Charlie, if you want to talk, hit the space bar.
He's talking, but
Charlie.
He must have hit the space bar. I seen something shoot up over the hill.
Hit the space bar, Charlie. We can't hear you. That'll unmute you.
all right, we'll come back if he gets up where he can speak. Do we want to talk about the? I've got down for the electrical inspector. I think Chris is on here and maybe Jay. Talk about the future need of an electrical inspector here at the county.
Yes, sir. Chairman Hill, it's Chris Schuler, Director of Planning and Zoning. We've moved forward today in our Planning Commission meeting to send a request to the Budget Committee after requests from several county commissioners on the research and possibility of hiring an electrical inspector. We've looked at this a couple of times before, never really could make the money to make it work. Now it looks like that the ability to make the monies there and to move forward with placing a full-time electrical inspector here for Carter County instead of just having a contracted electrical inspector with the state of Tennessee. So hopefully we'll be bringing some information to you, or at least the budget committee, in the very near future, and we'll move forward with that.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Schuler?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead,
Chairman
Mr. Tester.
Chris, I realize working in that field for some time that there is a need for probably electrical inspector not being able to get here on the days that the contractors and the people need them, such as temporary services, final inspections, rough ends, and footer grounds. I do realize that there's a need. One thing, and Chris, I'm sure you're aware of this, is what would the county's liability be for that employee? I know it's a little different because the state electoral inspectors basically worked as private contractors and did not have any properties or anything else in their name because of the liability. We as a county, or do we fall under a tort liability law like a municipality, which is roughly around $250,000 or something like that, the most they can get if we have an infraction? And how many permits do you sell a year? So that's all I have, Chris.
All right, I'll give you a better rundown on the amounts of the next meeting we have in the full county commission of the permits. I apologize. I've had kind of a major issue for the last 11 days going on here in the county, and we can talk about that later off the record. But anyways, we're looking at the tort liability. And as Commissioner Tester explained, a lot of times your building official, as far as electrical permitter or electrical inspectors, they kind of clean themselves up to where they own no personal properties, things of this nature. They have it in their wife's names or whatever, because they are a independent contractor to the state of Tennessee. And that's where the municipal end comes with the tort liability. Yes, when we first checked on this, the tort liability would cover that individual working for us, just the same as it would cover a sheriff's deputy or a clerk over at the courthouse. So yes, sir, it would do that. The amount, I don't know. I'd have to speak with Josh. I hadn't really checked on that portion of it since July of last year. So I can give you the rundown on the numbers and what we're looking at a little later date, probably Monday night, if that's all right with you, Commissioner Tester. And we'll go through that, and I'll try to get a hold of Josh on the tort liability. I know where they are covered, but what the actual maximum amount of tort would be.
Thank you, Chris, very much.
Thank you, sir. Good questions.
Hey, Chairman Hill,
Yes, Mayor Woodby.
while we've got Chris on and Jay, we had the planning meeting today, and I just want to recognize Jay for several of the certifications that he received, and I just kind of want to read them off for everybody to see what he's kind of been working on. He's received a certification for residential building inspector, commercial plumbing inspector, residential plumbing inspector, commercial mechanical inspector, residential mechanical inspector. All certifications that he's received, and I want to say thank you to him for taking the time to do that. That's great, and I just wanted to recognize him for that.
Patty, I really appreciate that endorsement there. It means a lot to me.
Yep. Thank you, Jay.
Bravo.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you, guys.
Yes, Mr. Bailey.
can I ask Mr. Schuler a question?
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Schuler, I know you're wanting the inspector. Do you have somebody in mind? I mean, has he already worked for you, or is it a job you're willing to post, or?
Well, we'll definitely have to post it. I don't hire without posting. There's several individuals I know in the local area. A couple of them have worked for me either on the this side or have actually worked for me back in the contractor stage. But there is several individuals out here that are more than well equipped and educated to handle a job such as this, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Does anyone have any more questions for the planning department or about the electrical inspector? Hearing none, we'll move on. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, sir.
Let's discuss the workforce development complex. We need to figure out kind of where we're going with that. Does anybody have any updated information as far as if we're going to develop it, if we're going to sell it, or what are we going to do with it?
Mr. Chairman, I can speak towards that.
Thank you, Mr. Grindstaff.
So during our last building and grounds meeting, originally there was a plan on the table to just look at what it would take to update the building, kind of get a floor plan, get some estimates, building usage, things of that nature. And during the last building and grounds meeting that we had, it was discussed about a joint project between us and the county schools about trying to move forward with maybe placing all of the career technical education classes in one location. They are tentatively very interested in that as an option. They have provided us some rough numbers from all four of their high schools on building footages as estimates. And we have, through the mayor, going to reach out to our architectural firm and ask them to include some of these ideas about what kind of what usages and space that we could get out of. Maybe I think that back building is the one that they were looking at. They've talked with, and the mayor can speak more on this, I'm sure. They've kind of talked a little bit with Northeast State about kind of how that would work, their kind of role, I guess, as you will, something that maybe they could team up on together and kind of potentially share a building. So that's kind of up in the air, but that's kind of that is the direction that was passed during the last building and grounds meeting.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any discussion?
Travis, I'll just chime in behind Isaiah. All that is correct, and it's very positive between Northeast State and TCAT to want to utilize that building for those CTE classes, especially with those 14 welding bays. And I think everybody knows that TCAT has a 2-year waiting list for their welding program. 2 years to even get into that program for that trade. And they're also putting a TCAT over in Washington County, and they're hoping that once they get some of those students over there, that will also lessen the weight on some of their programs and help to get our Carter County students into those programs without those weights. But I really hope that we can decide to utilize the workforce development complex for the school systems to help our youth.
Absolutely.
Chairman Hill, Brad Johnson.
Yes, sir, Mr. Johnson.
Can I go direct with my chair of the Building and Grounds Grindstaff?
Yes, sir.
Have they made contact with our AE firm to make a scheduled meeting, whether it be Zoom or whether it's under the oak tree, to get this thing going rather than talk it to death?
Sir, I'll defer that to the mayor. When we voted and we left that at the building and grounds meeting, that was up to, she was going to make contact with them on the current contract that they had sent, make those addendums, those changes, and have that contract brought back to us. That's kind of where we left it.
I have made contact with Shaw and Shanks, and they are currently working on that, and they are going to get with me on getting that together. I told them what we needed and what we're looking for, and they are aware.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Let's move on to the archives building. And I don't know where we stand on that. If we heard anything from Ms. Cowan or other properties we want to look at.
Ms. Holdren could probably, or Commissioner Holdren rather, could probably answer more of those questions than I could. I know that is, as we left it at the Building and Grounds meeting, they had actually went out and were asking for an appraisal themselves. We were waiting for those appraisal numbers to come back and just kind of get an idea of maybe what they say.
Okay, I'll add to that. Miss Cowan reached out to me last Friday and said that she should have an appraisal back this week.
Deal. Okay, anybody else want to discuss anything on the archives building? Don't see anybody making a move. I guess the next place we'll move to, of course, I think broadband's going to be in our future for a long time to come. I think it's something we're always going to keep on our radar and have money set aside to possibly match some grants. Does anybody have anything they want to add on broadband?
Chairman Hill, ACA First
Yes, sir.
District. I think most people on the call tonight, at least, and most commissioners know that we are working with a subsidiary of Blue Ridge Energy Corp, RidgeLink, and we're being asked to provide them with surveys which have been distributed not only in Roan Mountain, but at a Little Milligan, as well as here in Stony Creek. I think the importance of that is that when those surveys get in the hands of RidgeLink and they begin to write the grants for us, they hold significance in that there's about a $500 advantage to each survey returned. So 6 district commissioners, I would, since RidgeLink has really targeted the 6th district because they've already done some pre-engineering, that you all help us get some of those surveys to homes and to individuals so that we can get those back and contribute to the database. That's going to be very important going forward as they look for grants, whether they be USDA or if Mr. Woods comes back and tells us that they got a pot of money in Nashville for rural broadband. All of that information and data is going to be useful to move forward and secure those grants. So I think most everyone knows that the 1st district, the 2nd district, the 6th district stand the best chance currently to securing fiber-based broadband. So let's keep pushing that, and appreciate everybody doing that. The school system through Tracy McAbee and his principals are trying to help us as much as they can, but as many people know, the Carter County schools have been on a hybrid schedule. I don't think they're in session right now, and not being able to get those surveys into the hands of kids to take home causes us problems in getting them returned. So we may, each of us, have to go door to door if that's appropriate. Thank you.
Absolutely. Sir. Thank you. Does anybody else have anything to add towards broadband?
Travis, I will give you an update on Cloudland Elementary and Cloudland High. Blue Ridge is coming through there. We have connected those two. We've taken those off of Sprint. They are on the Blue Ridge coming out of Charlotte, which supplies on to Johnson City. So the only one that's left that is not on the 10 gig fiber is Little Milligan, but there's nowhere for me to hook up to change that over. I'll probably be changing Cloudland and Cloudland. They've done come and hooked it up to both schools and down there at our office. I'll be changing them over probably before the end of the school year. So that will be everybody except Little Milligan, and Cloudland will be on Elizabeth Electric. And then Cloudland will be on Blue Ridge. And then Little Milligan's the only one that's left on DSL speeds of the fiber that they've got. But I have nowhere to hook up to them. I mean, it's just, and everybody's got to keep in mind that is only to the school. That is not to the public. You know, I don't know how that's, and I'm sure that's what everybody's wanting to tie on to, is because the backbone infrastructure is to the schools. It's just if we can get somebody to break it on out to the residential. So, but just letting everybody know that basically I have changed the 2 Cloudland High schools, Cloudland High and Cloudland Elementary, is coming off of Blue Ridge out of Charlotte. So, because like I said, CenturyLink couldn't supply the speeds that we're after. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Anybody else have anything to add for broadband? Okay, next we'll move on to tourism. As Dr. Acuff mentioned earlier, we're pretty much in a tourism type industry right now, and probably for the rest of our days. I think the manufacturing days are slowing down, and we're going to have to hang on to what we have left and hope we don't lose those. So my question is, what can we do as a government body to draw people into us? I mean, I know we've got the lake and the Blue Hole and the Roan Mountain and all that stuff, but what else can we do to draw these people in? Because I've got a sports complex right down here. I still think we need to push for a sports complex to get people in here. I've noticed this summer over here, the two little parks have been busy almost every weekend, completely packed full of people playing softball.
And the main reason that happened is because Jenny Brock will not let them play in Johnson City, and there's no expectation that it'll resume next year.
Right.
That's
So what can we
that's
do?
one of the biggest revenue getters that you can that we have on the books today. And it's the least place that we look to develop. Because Johnson City and Washington County both have slaved the big line with it. It's constant every weekend, during the week, and they're not local, but some are some local, but they come from every state around us.
Yep.
And you don't find many pitch tents, they're in hotels.
Right, and that's something we need to push too, is for a nice name brand hotel to come into Carter County. I know we've got plenty of Airbnbs and campgrounds and cabins and all that stuff, but we need a nice hotel in town. So when they come, we get those tax dollars and the eating out, going to Walmart, buying Gatorade and snacks for the ball games. It's all that stuff. And I know last night in budget, we did some budget amendments for Wayfair signage. So we're all going to, I know Ross is working very hard on that to get signs up to all of our attractions to start pushing people to them. So anybody else got any ideas of what we can do as a body, a funding body, to promote our area more? I know the Omni bicycle race, we're working hard with the chamber to get those here for possibly all three races.
Well,
I can let you know
Mr.
what.
Chairman, if you look at the advertisements already done outside of our, I'm going to say outside of our county, other organizations like NetRep and all the rest of them put out, they're wanting you to be, they advertise for you to be a member of them, but they're already advertising all of our stuff for us. I mean, how can you help from the second largest man-made lake in the whole Southeast? You can't hide it whatsoever. And without what we have and what they're advertising, they wouldn't have nothing.
Correct. In my talks with Joy the other day, one of the things that she said that individuals had asked for was bowling alley and a hotel. Not high end, not anything. Hampton Inn, Holiday Inn Express. Those are the two that most people asked about specifically, was Hampton Inn and Holiday Inn Express. Quad baseball or quad softball, baseball field, whatever, will run about $2 million on development. So if we want to go down that route, we've got to figure out how we're going to do it, how we're going to pay for it, take a bond, pay it out of debt service, whichever way. But that one is entirely feasible. The only thing that we have to find is location. The old fish hatchery property down next to Valley Forge Auction will only fit 3 softball fields. So if we want to go that route, we could probably acquire that property from the state. The Elizabethton City is not, and I think Daniel may be able to chime in on this if I am incorrect, but Elizabethton City is not something that they are pursuing at the moment. They're looking more at the biking and Surf Betsy and things like that. So I think their interest in that particular piece of property has dropped a little bit. It's basically, it includes the old building for the recycling center, I think. So if we have a location that we could fit 4 baseball fields on, it's approximately, I think, 20 acres or something like that. We can get it in, for around $2 million. I've already talked to some developers about it. And they said it would be between 750 and 1.25 million per field, depending on how much pre-work they had to do. But I figured we could do a lot of the pre-work using the highway department, maybe, to save us a little bit of cashola on that side of it.
Chairman Hill.
Yes, Mayor Woodley.
I know Daniel's on here. If he wants to kind of chime in about update on the hotel. I think there's been some questions, and I know that that's still coming, but he may want to kind of update the commission on what the status is.
Sure. Well, thank you again. It seems like I think it seems like the city and the county are continuing to interface all the time, and I think that's probably a good thing. But I didn't intend on speaking, so I intended to be in the audience and listen and learn. So, but
you're part of our group. You're part of our group now. So,
well, as an ex-commissioner from Jefferson County, I've had shoe on the other foot. I know it's a tough job. So, and we were pretty much same setup. We had 3 fewer. We had 21 instead of 24, but even had the 81X. We had consolidated finance and everything. So, again, I've seen the shoe on the other foot and appreciate the work that y'all do. Couple of fronts there on the hotel. Yeah, that's still a go. We've renewed that through our TIF district that's over there in that area in town is set up through the Housing and Development Agency. And we just renewed that relatively recently. So I know COVID put hospitality kind of in a tailspin. So they kind of been on hold a little bit, but they're interested in coming back at it. Actually, we're listed on their website as coming soon, so it's there, even though, of course, they've not broken ground on it. So still hopeful on that. I just don't want to quote timelines because I can't make promises on, when, but we've got them on the hook. We've got them interested, and they're going to come and make it happen. As to, hold on just a second. My daughter's watching YouTube, and I got to tell her to turn that off. She sat down at the other end of the dining room table. Well, Dad can play on his iPad. She can play on hers. I didn't think you'd want to watch Ryan's World Toys. So I'll save you that. On the sports complex, I think we've got an interest in the property, the old fish hatchery property, but not necessarily as baseball and softball complex. I think there's an opportunity there for some of the Surf Betsy amenities when we get there to see what happens on the Watauga, and that river frontage would be useful, I think, to the city. We have an interest in it for that. But obviously, I think the structure caught on fire that was the recycling center has some issues because obviously it caught on fire and it's got asbestos in it. And the property over there has some environmental questions that need to be answered. I think some have been maybe mitigated before, but that's a big question mark for me. And I'd caution, free advice, take it for what it's worth. I'd caution getting in there and digging around a whole lot without a lot of due diligence work. And that's what I would caution the council if they were here. But we look at that as an alternative, maybe something for Surf Betsy over there on that river frontage. But we priced that out. We paid Tom Weems Architecture, and he partnered with CHA, who does a lot of sports complex development. And for the 3 ball fields you're going to lay out at the old fish hatchery property, you're looking at a $5 million number. So we like the idea. There was interest from council when I first started here, and that was middle of 2018, to look at a sports complex. But it was just that $5 million was just not something that was attainable for us with the other priorities that we wanted to undertake across the city. So it wasn't for the lack of interest. It was just for the lack of $5 million. But thank you.
Chairman Hill.
Yes, sir, Mr. Hill.
All these large scale desires are great and everything, but I think the county would be best served, in addition to looking at ball fields, major capital outlay, that kind of thing. I think a shorter term focus needs to be focusing on how do you increase the tourism budget that comes from flow through taxes from hotel, motel, room, campsite, hiker bunks, that kind of thing. And, a hotel would be great, but a hotel's not going to establish in Stony Creek, and it's not going to establish in Round Mountain, and it's not going to establish in Hampton because the infrastructure is not there for such. But that Airbnb that you glossed over a minute ago, now that is a hot topic and on trend, and they pay the hotel motel taxes directly to the clerk's office. that they collect and they pay it straight to us. And it's an entrepreneurial opportunity for folks that own homes that they don't know what to do with. Grandma's house. I've had some people wanting to get involved in that sort of business here in my district to accommodate some of the traffic that we're generating off the Appalachian Trail. But you're talking about smaller scale, big impact. Johnson City, Washington County's advertising budget for tourism from their hotel motel taxes is something like $750,000. Ours is a little over 100,000. I think 120 is a number that I heard batted around, which is nothing. Comparatively nothing. I just saw where we advertised with our tourism money in Better Homes and Gardens magazine. There were no who, what, when, where, how in the advertisement that they ran. They had photos of our attractors, but there were no people in those photos. There were no happy people visiting the attractors. They were empty. And so the message that they sent on that full page ad was not great. The magazine's widely circulated, but then who's the readership? And the city was, the Main Street program the other day was talking about wanting to develop a family-centric outdoor and recreational economy. We got to get our advertising mix in order. We have to choose wiser and more cost effectively and target the market that we're trying to attract instead of the scatter pattern thing that's been going on for as long as I've been around. Here in District 2, we won a small grant from Mountain Electric and TVA. We leveraged that grant with, we put a brochure in 28,000 service addresses, Mountain Electric service addresses. And the fun fact of that is that the owners of these properties are not necessarily from just this area, Ash, Avery, and Watauga counties, where the focus of the campaign was. We've had responses from Chapel Hill, North Carolina, South Florida, Texas, Georgia, South Carolina. Absentee ownership is a very powerful thing. We did that on a small dollar. And I'll point at the fact that none of the little businesses in the district had to go out of business during the COVID so far. We're going into winter, so the restaurants are going to have a harder time. But there are things we can do while we're waiting on that hotel to establish, to pick up traffic, to generate business. The North Carolina visitor market, I keep saying these things. It's a little less than $750 million. It's bigger than Washington and Sullivan County's visitorship markets that we seem to keep trying to market to. And they're not largely aware of us. We're the undiscovered country to them. So you've got a whole different pot of money that would the potential to come over for day trips and leave a little trail of cash if we just go out and solicit it. I don't mean to prattle on about all this, but there are some short-term things that we should probably be looking into, and I'll yield back. Thanks for the time.
Commissioner Hill, I mean, how do we get that out to areas outside of our general small little pocket area here of Northeast Tennessee?
And I want to chime in on that as well.
Yeah, well, that's the fun part. It's called an advertising or media mix, and right now, a lot of our efforts don't get out widely. We advertise to ourselves quite a bit. We all know about Carter County and Washington County. They know about us. So the trick is to tap into the markets, Asheville, Boone, Western North Carolina, the places that we have ignored for years. They're busting at the seams over there. They have tighter COVID restrictions over there, which we aren't subject to right now. There are a lot of factors in our favor to capture business. And then, of course, it's up to the business owner to turn them into permanent customers. Once they find their way here, they've got to turn them into a regular and make sure they have a positive experience. But there are things you can do. There are geo-targeted publications that actually have heavier readerships in the demographics that we all say we're trying to go after. Yet we're doing the scatter pattern thing. I get Better Homes and Gardens. It's in every doctor's office. And as we all know, they never throw their magazines away. So they'll be there for the next decade. Is that the audience that we're going for, though? You look at the readership and you look at the type of customer that you're trying to attract and the amenities that you're offering, you match the two up, and then you try to find a pot of money that'll fit it.
One of the things that I mentioned, or Joy mentioned the same thing, kind of the same thing that Mr. Hill's mentioning. She said the reason that they had targeted those publications is because their research had led them to believe that majority of women are the ones that plan the vacation trips. They put it in Women's Day and Better Homes and Gardens as the two targets. I agree with Mr. Hill that there's a lot of people locally that we could target, but the chamber is the one that's generally responsible for doing that tourism recruiting, and it's ultimately on them. I think it's really on us to impart to them. That's like, hey, if we have alternate ideas to push to those. And it was one of the reasons that I had put like a copywriter and, web developer in the original economic development stuff that I put out there. So we would have a direct line to being able to produce that sort of content to market to those people. And I really think a big part of it as well is stuff on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and things like that. I think that there's a lot of those people walk in patterns. And if you start to specifically target people from, that are 18 to 39 years old or 18 to 59 years old or 18 to 49 and start delivering that message to people that have similar interests or visited other places, those sorts of granularity levels are available in social media marketing, where you can specifically put an ad in front of somebody that actually took a trip to someplace that's similar to Carter County, or likes mountain biking or likes other things like that. But Mike knows better about that stuff than I do, I think.
Yeah, another way to get there without actually having to spend hard advertising dollars is travel articles. We know this place better than anyone, and the little regional publications are all looking for content. We just dropped a 4-page section in the High Country North Carolina Visitors Guide featuring Roan Mountain. We just pasted ourselves on to that market. It's Guerrilla Marketing 101. It was supposed to happen back last March. COVID threw a wrench in our works, but it finally is a thing. We compete. We try to compete. We're competing. We don't need to compete. This is the same mountain that they're marketing. It's just the other side. And if we begin to realize that we're an extension of something that already is being well marketed, we then can leverage the significant resources that they have to attract those people that Joy and the Chamber people are going after in Texas and Florida. The High Country host does the heavy lifting. We motivate with a smaller dollar the customers to come the last mile. And you can do that on $100,000, or more accurately, probably about 70, because we chew up about 20% of our hotel motel tax funding with a guy. And when you have a $120,000 budget, the way you stretch that budget, you don't, and there's nothing wrong with the guy, but we are not in a position, it doesn't leave anything left to advertise with. So what you're talking about is an advertising campaign and a once and done annually, and a building process to where you do have one of those larger budgets that allows you to reach further. We haven't shored up the local money, and there's plenty of it. And frankly, the AT Community Committee up here in District 2, we're doing our part. We're hoovering them into the county, and it's going to be up to us to bring them in a little further and to cross promote. We put up a panel with the Over Mountain Victory story on the stage in the community park, suggesting that people go to Sycamore Shoals. Those little points of contact have become major big deals. And I'm glad you're talking about wayfinding signage, because I've said for years they need to consolidate all that stuff on a single rack at all the major intersections instead of scattering it on poles throughout, the town, where people can actually navigate this stuff. But there are a lot of little things that we can do in-house for little or no expense, with our existing resources, creative use of the highway department. Periodically, we leverage them to put out the Tweetsie extension signs that probably need a little attention in some places because they have dirty words spray painted on them in some cases now. There are a lot of things we can do that aren't budget busters and that will, the key is to build that pot, to build that fund. We can't afford to wait for someone to build the hotel. We need to start capturing share now. We have every service level there is in Roan Mountain, between the Airbnbs, the campground cabin lodgements, the camps, the hiker bunks, that kind of thing. It would be easy enough to take and cookie cutter stamp this for Hampton, and I'm hoping to do that if they renew us this year. I want to add Watauga Lake. Congratulations, you just became part of our service area. But the problem and the solution involves telling people our story and telling people about our assets, and not our people. Our people know. We need to tell everybody else in the world. We need to do it on a shoestring budget. There are things that we can do. Happy to talk to you all individually if you want to call sometime.
Chairman Hill.
Yes, Ms. Woodby.
I'm going to follow in behind Mike. Friday, I had a meeting here in our courthouse, in our conference room, with Mayor Grandy and Mitch Miller, and also Jeff Dykes, who is the CEO of Bright Ridge and, of course, of NetRep. And so you know that First Tennessee, I don't know if you guys have read the article, but we voted to NetRep. It's going to change. First Tennessee Development District is going to do a different approach to regional economic growth. And so Kurt Alexander and myself have agreed to sit on that board to start that process. And so I think that's great for the city of Elizabeth and Carter County to do that. But they come over and met with us, and we've got, and Mike's right exactly on the money on it. It's everything that they're saying as far as a regional approach, as far as the counties working together on what their assets are. Trying to put together maybe a 4-day package of coming to Roan Mountain to see Roan Mountain, going to Tannery Knobs, going to the beauty spot. That entices people to stay here longer. But that is in the works, and it was a great meeting. We were together for almost 2 hours discussing the possibilities for this new venture. And I'll let Daniel kind of chime in too, as he was with me when we met with these guys, and it's very positive for Carter County.
Thanks, Mayor. And I'll echo what the mayor just said. I think Commissioner Hill's, all over it on the marketing side. People are important, but it hurts when you tie up so much of your budget and personnel if you can't actually get out there. Why not hire an ad agency to help you draw some things up and then put that money to work paying for it to be out in the market? But also what the mayor was speaking to, I think it was very helpful to me to hear how things may move forward, and that as the new economic development hub, what the new successor to NetRep will roll into, that they were very much interested in hearing where we had a need. And this was one that came up, was marketing and promotion. And a couple of things came to mind. If folks are over in Boone or Western North Carolina generally, and they book a trout fishing trip, they may be putting them on a bus and bringing them over the mountain to come over here and fish, and don't even know that they've left the state. And then they bring them a sack lunch and haul them back home. We're missing out on those people. And I think an opportunity is there for us to jump on, and it's not us versus Johnson City. It's not the Hampton Watershed Bike Trails versus Tannery Knobs. It's all of the above. It's us getting people here all over the place, and they may go mountain bike 4 different places. And I think, between the city and the county, it's a natural place to us talk about Hampton Bike Trails because it's in Hampton. It just so happens that the city's water department owns the mountainside that it's on. And that's an opportunity for us. It's there, and we want to expand it on some Doe River Gorge Ministry land that we've got a lease on. But we need to push it. We need to market it and promote it and talk about it, get the word out there. And I was very pleased to hear the folks, again, from NetRep saying that they're very much listening and interested in trying to help us get a marketing and promotional plan. And again, it not just be us, it be for the whole region. And then as together, we all get pushed at the same time. All of those amenities, all of those features that people would come out and want to visit. And I think that's an asset for Carter County, in that outdoor recreation space. So if they're pushing that across the region, that's bigger money that gets put in the pot. So I think that those are all good things.
I think it was a very successful start with the meeting. We have several of the counties really wanting to work with Carter County right now and promote us just as they're promoting their amenities in their county. I thought that was a great conversation that we had, and I think Daniel agrees. It was very, very good, and I think it's a great move for Carter County to start this relationship. And I also wanted to mention that was brought to my attention that some may not know or some may know, but as far as we're talking about the position on the economic development, there is money that the utilities hold to fund that position. And also the TVA will match what funding that is not there. And that's something I'm looking into with NetRep. Mitch is going to help me. So there's money available to actually fund a position for economic development from the utilities. And then
Patty, I'll speak.
Go ahead.
Not
Dan.
to interrupt. I'm sorry, but I was going to say I talked to Rob Tony about that recently, and
Say
I know
for it.
we've got some money there with the Northeast Tennessee RITA, but you can't use it for payroll. You can't use it for personnel. If you want to do some advertising or marketing or some planning things, you can do that in the industrial development space, but you can't pay salaries out of it, and it's on a reimbursement basis. But that's an opportunity that's out there, and we'll be happy to talk about that.
Mitch said the TVA would come in and also match
Sure.
anything that we needed. So there's some opportunities out there for us to look into.
Yeah, sorry for, here I am again talking, so I'm going to fade back to the background.
You're fine.
No, you're good. Thank y'all.
All right. Anybody else have anything to add for tourism? Sound like we've got some pretty good input of what we need to do.
Did everybody take a look at NetRep's regional plan whenever Mike sent it out? Mr. Hill sent it out? It's actually very good. It's off in some spots, I think, but it's overall very good. I think that there's some things that could be changed in it just locally, but it does give us some very, very valid things for us to be able to work on. Like some of the survey results said, what's the most important things that would be of benefit to the county. And I think some of them were like website for amenities. And then for like Carter County, it was more bathrooms, that was whatever. It is what it is, but I think that there's other things, there's very low hanging fruit that we could do that are in that plan that should be looked at.
Okay. Anybody else? I had economic development down. I think we've touched quite a bit on it recently and even tonight. So in the city county joint meeting topics, of course, we've got economic development down because we need to work that out with the city and see what their desires are. I've got down the Gap Creek Park, just for the fact if we develop that, we need to, if the city wants to get in and help us with maintaining that park, we need to give them time to work through their budget, for us to work through our budgets. So at least give us some time to discuss the timeline on that. Of course, the animal shelter, I'm sure we'll discuss that. And as Daniel mentioned earlier, the Hampton Bike Trails, I had forgot completely about that. But, if we need to fund some of that to make that happen, we need to be looking at that in the budget process. And with that, that's everything I have down. If anybody else has anything they want to add to the meeting topics for next month's meeting or this discussion for us in general, the floor is open to anybody.
Chairman Hill, Brad
Yes,
Johnson III. Couple items, and I applaud you for organizing the workshop, and I think it's very valuable to us as commissioners, the benefit of our citizens. But if you'll notice everything we have talked about this evening, the majority of the topics is in the development and building in the county. And there's some high dollar signs on there, and I know that there are some that we won't be able to obtain in 2 years, maybe in 3, more than likely in 5. But I would think out of all of this list here that we should be able to come up with a priority list to help our budget committee and to get into the thoughts and minds of our commissioners when we're talking about our money and our revenues and our taxations and everything of what we're trying to accomplish. You might want to pick the the top two. And that's some great progress. But it also, if you come in our priority list, it's a goal that is more than likely obtainable. And some people, just can't work without a goal. They just stand out there in lolly world and know the topic, but that's about the end of it.
Right.
And one of the other things that I think that hurts us also, in the past 3 months, we've visited 2 or 3 pieces or parcels of land that are improved property, with thoughts in mind that, who we're going to move here, who can we move here, how would this work out, and so forth. Because the main problem is we're bulging out at the seams at the old courthouse, and it's evident it's not going to get any better. And one of the resources that we have that is of great savings right now that can be used is the archives. How do we pool all of these? We need somehow that we take the direction instead of just making a major list, and we can go over it every month, but there's no action to it or dollar signs that our budget committee is looking at, or how we can direct resources to. That's all I have.
I think we need to look at, some of these things like the radio towers. I think that's something that can be done. How are we to develop the workforce development complex? Maybe some of the others is stuff we have to look at as possibly taking out a bond, since the market's low right now, and lump some of these together to start the action of it. Other things, we're just going to have to work through. I think some of these are very short-term goals that we can take on this budget year.
It was actually one of the things that somebody mentioned to me. I think it was Joy, actually. There is a very high demand right now for a commercial kitchen access space under like the maker space. Like if we had a full incubator hub inside the maker space having a commercial kitchen, everybody's going to Irwin.
Well, that's not, Mr. Fraser, and I don't blame her. I would throw the Q in there too. But if they'll hold their britches up, time to get that workforce development laid out, we can put a kitchen on them that make McDonald's look sick. They just got to be just. You can't take that pill and get a stomach ache and go create one real quick.
Oh, I understand. I'm just saying that it was something that it's something that there's at least 8 or 10 businesses, like especially food trucks, that are looking at stuff like that, marking off times where they can do actual catering jobs and stuff rather than trying to pull it out of their truck.
You're good. Biggest majority of our thinking, we have I'm going to say the boundary capabilities inside those boundaries, but to get it to develop and get it to work and to where we can get it moved in there is just, like I say, we've talked it to death. But that's, my biggest concern is to make sure that everybody has in the back of their mind things that we need to work toward, and the budget committee to know that numbers that we're having to come up with, they may be gross in nature, not in net. And then as time improves, you can update those numbers on development. And they're all good. I hadn't heard one thing here tonight that was negative. Have you?
Commissioner Hill, Chairman Hill,
Yes, sir.
ACUF First District. Just a couple of comments as we close out the meeting. I'm very much looking forward to the city-county joint opportunity for us to sit down and talk to one another. I will remind you, and I have a number of times, those of us on the Animal Shelter Committee, we also share that responsibility with 3 council members. And that committee has become a really great partnership for city and county. I know that there are other opportunities out there, and I think it would behoove us as a commission to look for those opportunities to partner more effectively with our city counterparts. We're in this together, and unless we're going to grasp hands, listen to one another, and to really want to be helpful going forward and being considerate in a partnership with one another, we're not going to succeed. So I just encourage us to look at those opportunities. And I really appreciate Daniel Estes being on the call tonight, as well as Mike Simmerly. And I just think there's just lots of opportunities going forward that we can be very successful with here in Carter County with Elizabethton as well. So thanks for letting me.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. I agree 100% with everything you said.
Chairman Hill, I want to agree also with Dr. Acuff. That's exactly what I'm working towards here, is this relationship and forging this. Because we may be able to succeed, but we can succeed at a much greater standard with the help of the city, not just with the city of Elizabethton, but Washington County, Unicoi County, Johnson County. And in time, I'm going to establish all those relationships. And that is my goal to work on here as your mayor. I'm going to establish those relationships so we can be better as a region.
Anyone else? I guess before we get off here, I seen Miss Carolyn Hurt on here. I know the mayor sent out a little thing today about the COVID vaccine distribution plan.
I asked Caroline to just kind of come on and update the commission on how this is all going to work and answer maybe some questions that the commission may have as far as the vaccination process, since we're all on here tonight. And she would briefly come on, and if there's any questions, we may ask her.
There she is.
Hi there. Can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I've got hopefully some more details, fine point details that will be coming toward the end of the week. But for right now, I can tell you that we know that the initial shipment of vaccine that we're going to receive in is going to be extremely limited. So even within that first phase and that highest tier of priority recipients, which would include home health care staff, the student health providers in school nurses, the staff and residents of long-term care facilities, first responders, including EMS, law enforcement, firefighters. Even within that very constricted group, we already know for sure that when we receive our first very limited shipment next week, we're going to have to sub-prioritize within that group. And that's going to be based on those factors like age being over 65 years, people with diabetes, current cancer treatment, history of solid organ transplant, COPD, a BMI over 30, serious cardiac disease, excluding high blood pressure, and chronic kidney diseases and that sort of thing. So we already know that. I just wanted you all to be able to expect that and not be caught unaware that we already know that's going to be the case next week. Now we'll be followed the week after that with another limited supply. That's going to allow us to, further work our way through those phases. And I think that I've supplied the link to the Tennessee vaccination plan to just about everybody. If you don't have it and you want it, just send me an email and I'll be sure to email you the links back and the actual document itself if necessary. But we will work through those phases. You won't ever have to wonder when it's time for you to get a vaccine. You will either receive a link directly from us, the health department, or you will hear it on a very well orchestrated media announcement as to who, where, and when. So I want to make sure that you all are very comfortable and confident knowing that. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you all may have to the best of my ability as of this evening.
Caroline, I know last night, I believe you told us we were getting the Moderna vaccine.
Yes.
Are we gonna get multiple different vaccines in here, like from Pfizer? And I know there's 3 or 4 others that they're working on trying to approve. Or are we just gonna basically stay with Moderna the whole time?
We'll get a variety. Pfizer will come early on to the ballot health system for use with the frontline workers who deal with COVID patients. The Moderna will come to us for that phase 1A1 group that I just kind of went through. Later on, as we begin to branch out into other critical infrastructure workers, other healthcare workers, in that kind of phase 2, at that point, then we'll be somewhere in the neighborhood of late spring. And we should be seeing other brands coming along. I would still anticipate, and I specifically use the word anticipate, that still being a 2-dose initial vaccine, even if it's other brands. That's generally true of all of our vaccines on the initial application of those. But we should be seeing additional brands coming through spring and summer of next year.
Okay, do you see, I know you said it was gonna be two doses. Are there gonna be multiple stages of this where you've got one group that's got 1 dose? Are they gonna get 2 doses before the first dose hits to other people, or are you gonna have them kind of both going at the same time?
We'll kind of have them both going at the same time because, like I said, we anticipate getting a very, very limited supply in next week, another limited supply in the following week for that first tier, and then 28 days later, there has to be that 28-day period in between, we will receive an additional shipment of the Moderna, because whatever brand you start with, you have to have the second dose out of. So we will, 28 days later, we're going to receive another second dose shipment for all of those folks that we took care of next week and the week after. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Caroline?
Yes.
I can't remember, and you probably already told me this, but what are the vaccination times when you start? How long will you guys be on the property?
Well, the way that it looks like we're going to be having limited supplies, next week we should be able to utilize the very limited quantities that we're going to be getting for the highest priority subgroup within 1A1 in a day. The following week, the same thing. I would not think over a day. Okay. Now, when we get into the other phases, when we start working our way down to the bottom of the phase 1 group and then go into phase 2 and 3 and finally everybody else, then we might be setting up for multiple days at the pod.
Does anybody else have any questions for Ms. Hurd? Seeing none. Thank you, Ms. Caroline, for coming on tonight. And thank you for all you do.
Well, thank you all for all the support that you give us. We sure do appreciate it. We know that we couldn't do it without every one of you who are tremendous supporters of us. And we do appreciate you all as well. And thank you for going through this with us. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Caroline.
Bye-bye.
All right. If nobody else has anything to discuss, I really appreciate everybody that joined us tonight. Let these ideas bounce around your head. You can shoot me an email anytime, or we can discuss it at the full commission or whenever. Just, if you got something on your mind that you think we need to be pushing forward, then just let me know. But with that being said, I guess we're done for the night. I appreciate you all.
Good night, Frazier.
Good night, Bradley.